We all know what storylines will be dominating the headlines this season, but what are some under the radar ones that you might want to pay attention to?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, I thought that we could take a look at some storylines that are worth paying attention to, but you might not see, in the headlines as often as you could, or you potentially should. We know that Rasmus Andersson's future with the Flames is going to be a hot topic this season. So I think that it's also important for us to remember that he said we don't want it to be a distraction, and it won't be. So let's talk about some, kind of more positive storylines, to be honest. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you starting next week, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And like I mentioned, we know that the Rasmus Andersson trade situation is just going to dominate training camp. It is going to be the most asked question, not just to Rasmus Andersson, but probably to Kevin Bahl, who we're going to talk about a little bit later, who was his defensive partner last season. I'm sure the captain's going to be asked about it. I'm sure Ryan Huska's going to be asked about it. I'm sure everyone on the team is going to be asked about it. But what else is potentially brewing in the narrative generator this offseason? And I think something we should be watching out for is Martin Pospisil taking another step forward in his development. We know that last season was kind of a downish year for him. Granted, it was his second season in the league, and it was projected. I said last summer that his regression was going to be more significant than Connor Zary's, which I think you can argue for the most part was true. And I'm hoping that we see something different this summer or this season. And my biggest concern when it comes to Pospisil is, of course, his concussion history. He's had 5 or 6 concussions. His last one that he suffered in the AHL ended up really being a potentially career-ending concussion because of how severe it was, how horrible recovery was, as well as the symptoms that went along with it, and kind of the aftermath of it in the, I don't want to say post-concussion syndrome because I'm not a doctor, but the lingering side effects of a concussion on top of multiple other previous concussions. And I think that with that, you have to remember that Martin Pospisil also plays on the edge. He has been suspended. He has been compared to Matt Rempe. He has taken costly penalties that were completely avoidable. But what is going to be different? Well, through last season, we saw him kind of rein it in. We saw him play a little safer. Really, while he played on the edge, he knew not to cross the line. And then he got better at it, I guess. I think, you're never going to get a 20-plus goal season out of him. Multiple. You may get 1 or 2, but I don't think it's going to be a consistent thing. And that's okay, because that's not what he is for. That's not his role on the team. And I think he's a role player. I think that this season is going to be very important for his future as a Flame and with the Flames, because he did just sign that extension this summer, so he's obviously part of the Flames' vision. I think that he's a good third, fourth, more so a third line grinder, fourth line if necessary. I think that he can still obviously contribute offensively, but he's out there to push buttons, and he has speed and skill. So it's not like he's just out there like who did we see? Nick and Brett Ritchie. Not so much Nick Ritchie, but Brett Ritchie just scooting around out there to eat up minutes. Martin Pospisil has a true role on this team, and he has skill, he has talent. I've been particularly hard on him, but I think this season is hopefully going to be a step in the right direction for him. Hopefully, being a few years removed from his concussion, being settled in his third season in the NHL with that extension signed, he feels some stability and I don't know if promise is the right word, but I would say stability and kind of confidence, because the team obviously likes you. They want to keep you around. So fingers crossed that we get to see him take a step in the right direction. And I think what consists of the right direction is a multitude of things, because I can't just sit here and say, oh yeah, if he doesn't get suspended, it's a success. Because there's more to his game than that. I mean, yeah, if he avoids getting suspended again, that would be pretty neat. That would be a check in the good column. I think continuing to see him increase his ice time, as well as hopefully find some more the net, back of the net a few more times would be neat, as well as I think this might be, I don't want to say bold, but I think he does pretty well at the faceoff dot, and I would like to see him thrown into the center position a little bit, should that be needed. I think Connor Zary should be taking priority at center over Martin Pospisil, but I digress. Don't let me open that can of worms today. But coming up next, we are going to talk about Kevin Bahl, because I think that I was very hard on him last season, and since his acquisition, because coming over in the Jacob Markstrom trade, but I think that there is another really great storyline blossoming there, and it is one you're going to want to pay attention to. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using the FanDuel app because it's super easy to assemble a parlay, to look at the odds, to make what I would say is the right decision, trust your gut, and just have fun with it. Maybe you're not a fan of the particular teams playing. Add more fun and excitement to it by betting on a team. Bet the over. Who doesn't love more offense? So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. I think I do owe Kevin Bahl an apology. And I would say it was fair for me to assume he would be coming in and playing a sheltered role like he did in New Jersey, because I thought that there were other options for the Flames. But I'm very glad that I was wrong, because I think that he has just truly grown into this top pairing player, and to go from, minimal minutes in New Jersey to 20 plus minutes a night in one season is rather impressive, and to be doing it fairly well. So I pulled up his average time on ice. And for the last 3 seasons, so he went from 14 minutes a night to 17 and a half minutes to 21 and a half minutes with the Flames. So this is a step in the right direction. You like to see that. I think with this upcoming season, obviously his extension kicks in. I think that it is a positive for the Flames to have him on the team. He's a young, solid defenseman that is going to have the potential of even playing with Mackenzie Weegar, depending on when Rasmus Andersson decides to be traded, because ultimately that's up to him. Or it's really not, but it certainly feels like it. I think with Kevin Bahl, you have to watch a few things. And I don't mean this negatively by any means, but he had a body language problem. I don't even want to... A pattern. I noticed a pattern with his body language after certain goals against. He looked disappointed and so defeated, like he had become unplugged. Like someone just let out all the gas. Someone just let out all the steam. There was nothing. The air out of his tires. Like, he was just flat. And I think this season, we're going to hopefully see less of that. And hopefully more confidence. You don't want to look rattled after you let up a goal. I know that that's like kind of common sense, and it's hard not to be upset or defeated, but at the same time, if there's so much hockey left to play, you shouldn't be looking like you just gave up the game-winning goal of a playoff series. Carry yourself with confidence and go back out there and make up for it. I think we do see further strides in his game, where we're seeing that positive progression and hopefully less regression than anything, because I think that would be detrimental to the Flames' plan in general, even if it's just this season. However, I kind of have this, when I was putting this together, I was thinking to myself, and a light bulb kind of went off. Could Kevin Bahl have the type of development, or not necessarily timeline, but storyline, I guess, as Mackenzie Weegar when he got traded to the Flames? Obviously, Weegar was great in Florida. He was pretty solid, pretty good, can't complain. Came to the Flames, took on a bigger role, and I think both of those players have done that. They played much better than they had, and it just kept getting better each season. And I think what's cool about this is that Bahl has Weegar to kind of learn from, and to be like, hey, back in my day when I was your age, I wish I did this differently, or anything like that. I think that that's a strong possibility. And I'm not saying that he's going to follow exactly in his footsteps. He's going to have a 20 goal and 200 block season. No, I think that's very silly. Was it 200 blocks? I think so. Or 20 blocks. I think it was 200. 200 makes a lot more sense. But regardless, the Flames have an interesting situation going on with their blue line. It is on the cusp of becoming a younger group. Once you have the Miramonov, Pahal, Bean, Hanley contracts out of there, you are going to be able to integrate more of your younger players on a more consistent basis. And it's like right there, so close. And I think Kevin Bahl getting settled before that shift in that transition is going to be huge, because again, he can be a player that these guys turn to, the same way that he is looking to Weegar and probably Andersson. I'm hoping that we do see around the same ice time, maybe a little bit more. One thing, I guess my biggest concern is once again the body language. Not because it's like it makes him look like a sore sport, but because I think that it impacts how the rest of your game goes. Because if you just like you see something and you're just so bummed out and defeated, like why are you going to give 110%? Does that make sense? I don't know. But I want to see the confidence there. The same way that we have watched Mackenzie Weegar just kind of burst onto the scene, I want to see that for Kevin Bahl. And I will be the first one to admit that I owe him an apology. And I'm really hoping that this season he does get to play with Weegar. I want to see things shift prior to the Flames trading Rasmus Andersson, because I said that storyline was going to dominate the Flame season, and I didn't really want to talk about it here, but everything just comes back to it. And I want to see Weegar and Bahl play together. I want to see them as the top pair, and I would honestly love to see Huska put Andersson and Hanley on the second pair, or make it worse and put Miramanov out there with them. I'm not saying like torture the guy, but I don't know. You can make his last few games as a Flame fun if you really wanted to. If he's even here by the time camp starts, we don't know. There's still a couple weeks left. But coming up next, we're going to talk about Joel Farabee and the expectations that are on his shoulders as he enters his first full season as a Calgary Flame. Most people can't name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal financial tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. And let me tell you, they do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes and see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. That is music to my ears because I don't like spreadsheets, but I sure do like pretty charts telling me how much money I spend on dining and online shopping. Monarch has really helped me truly gain a full picture of what my finances look like and where I can improve and where I'm already doing okay. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at JessBelmosto. Last season was not a good season for Joel Farabee. He was already having a down year in Philly, and then he came over in the Andrei Kuzmenko and Jacob Pelletier trade and just had an absolute bummer of a season. The 25-year-old had just 3 goals and 6 points in 31 games with the Flames. Making $5 million a year, bud. You can't really be putting up those numbers. And I understand. I'm the first person to be in the defense of outside circumstances impacting a player's performance. Because I'm sure that moving across North America, away from the East Coast, all you've known your whole life, to the frozen tundra of Calgary, Alberta, in the middle of winter is a lot. I'm sure moving anywhere unfamiliar is a lot. But I think for Farabee, there's pressure there. He can't be playing a full 82 game season and only putting up 10 goals, 10, 11, 10 to 15 goals. That, as a $5 million player, is unacceptable. I think that he needs to be closer to 20, preferably in the 20s, and consistently scoring. I don't think that it's unreasonable to expect that from him. He's capable of it. We've seen it done. But now it's a matter of all of it clicking and all of it really happening and playing and out in front of us. I think that Farabee's season, depending on how it goes, could ultimately, of course, be overshadowed by bigger storylines. Michael Backlund's in his last year of his contract. He wants to keep playing. And the Flames' goal is to get younger, but are they really just going to let their captain go? I mean, for goodness sake, they let Gio go in the expansion draft. Like, I don't think that it's a question. Like, I don't think it's a loyalty thing. I think it's a matter of hopefully getting more competitive, but alas, I don't know. And of course, the Andersson trade rumors, because those are the rumors that we've talked about all offseason, and any other trade rumors that come up along the way. For goodness sake, I'm sure we'll hear Kadri to Toronto or Montreal well into the season, up until the deadline. I'm sure we'll hear stuff about Blake Coleman or, Dustin Wolf suffering the sophomore slump. Connor Zary held out and he's only playing 12 minutes a night now. What are we going to do? Like, there are there are more interesting storylines, I think, that would catch people's attention. But I think a Joel Farabee bounce back season is interesting. I think that it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Needed. To be quite honest, I think that he needs to have himself a good season to not only obviously help the Flames and play up to his contract, but to put some confidence back in his game. At the end of the season, when they did the exit interviews, he looked so defeated and so disappointed, and he even said it himself that he sucked. So, I mean, being self-aware is important. So, you can't harp on him too much for that, but it really does matter how this season goes, because if not, that's just another unproductive player taking a spot from a deserving young player. So we will have to see how that goes, because I don't necessarily have an idea. I would love to say that Farabee is going to bounce back and have a 20-goal season, but I just don't know. Anything is possible in hockey. The entire game can shift in a matter of seconds. So we'll have to see what the Flames have in store for us and watch these storylines along the way. And that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'll be back tomorrow, of course, with another episode. Hopefully we'll be talking Connor Zary extension or Rasmus Andersson trade. One day I will speak my outro into existence. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, and I will see you later.